DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Wednesday. It never ceases to amaze me how Willy Donick arrives just as the show is about to begin. It's an art. It's a skill. He sat down in his chair literally right as I turned on the mic to greet all of you. So, Willy, I am impressed. I always have been, and I always will be.
Well, thank you. I try to please. I aim to please.
Derek's
Yes.
Derek's fine. He shows up.
Yeah,
he shows
I
up.
mean, with me, it's kind of, But Willy, but the thing I will say is, Willy's here on the premises because when I got to the premises, Willy pulled up maybe a minute behind me. So I was here an ample amount of time, which means Willy was too.
I just was out of the parking lot.
He was just being a sloth, just moving very slowly.
It kind of reminds
taking care
me
of things that probably should have been taken care of an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
Yeah. So
it kind of reminds me of a class I took as a freshman in college. And this was one of those classes where the only grades were the midterm and the final.
Mm-hmm.
No homework assignments. I mean, you had to read, but no homework assignments that were graded, no pop quizzes, nothing like that. Just the midterm and the final. And I swear to you, on the day of the midterm, a guy I had never seen before walks into the class, kind of looks around and goes, "Is this Professor Donick's class?" Like he had not shown up the entire year, knowing that he only needed to show up for the midterm and the final. And he showed up for the first time for the midterm.
Could he watch online
No.
or get the notes?
I mean, I guess he could get the notes from someone, but he did not show up to class for the first time until halfway through the semester.
He probably was thinking, I've never seen you.
Now, let me ask you guys this. Do you think in the age of Chat GPT and all of these things that you have on your computer, do you think that number of kids who have done that has increased?
Oh, it definitely has increased.
I can promise you it has, as I was one of those.
Okay.
See,
and do you think professors have rolled with the punches some and have figured out, okay, how do we find the happy median? We know this is out there for the student. I always wonder that.
It depends on the professor, because I had professors in college. One of them was a huge advocate of it. Said, I want you to use Chat GPT to ensure your ideas and whatever. Don't, write a full paper with it, but have it, fill up your ideas and, solidify your paper or whatever. And then I had another one that was super old fashioned that said, if you use any electronic device whatsoever, you're going to fail. So
I am so glad that AI was not around when I was in school. Here was my version of AI. My senior year in college, I had completed all of the requirements for my major. So I just needed to complete credit hours so I could take any class that I wanted to. So I took a history class that was populated by freshmen. So as the elder statesman of the class, I said to all of the freshmen, the precocious young freshmen, hey, let's all get a study group together. We'll meet in the library. We'll prepare for the midterms and the finals. And I used those suckers because I knew they were going to put in the work and I would reap the benefits. And the best part was, and here was the best part. The professor, when he handed out the grades for the midterms and the finals, he would announce to the class the 3 highest performers on both of them. And guess who was in the top 3 both times? This guy.
Oh, yeah. Vignon.
I used those suckers. I hope they learned a lesson from the school of hard knocks.
Oh,
Don't let seniors push you around.
Man.
I have one other related question.
Yes.
To your this subject, Adam, about showing up just for the midterm and the final. Do you guys still have a dream on occasion that you didn't get your degree? And
all the time. All the time.
I think everybody has that. I know I have that from time to time. Like, did I graduate?
Goodness.
Wait a minute. You wake up and you're like, I didn't go to class. I missed this whole class. Do I have a degree? Like, when you wake up, it's such a good feeling when you wake up and you're like, oh.
As a
Okay.
fresh graduate,
Did you
I have
not
it
go?
frequently.
Did you not go to class? Period.
Oh,
In your dream,
In the
yeah.
dream, yeah, didn't go.
So you missed 4 years.
Didn't go. No, well, I mean, it's one class or another. Just
Oh,
like
okay,
this
okay.
class,
All right,
I
all right.
have not gone.
Like you
And so
thought you were getting ready
And
to
if I'm
walk.
not going, I can't get the
yeah, you
degree.
can't get the
There's
degree.
no way.
Okay.
Versions of it's different versions. of
I
the
have
same
a
thing.
version
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
dream.
I've had a version of that dream, like missing like things or not going to some place that I said I was going to go, and I wake up like, oh my goodness, is it now? And I look at my watch, I look at my phone, and be like, oh, that's tomorrow or next week. So
Happens
why
all the
is
time.
That? Why is that? Why do we have? Why
I
do
need to
most of
do
us have
some
that
sort
dream?
of dream analysis.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll use ChatGPT for that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Easton Freeze.
It's legal
will,
now.
Yes. Easton Freeze will join the program at 4. We'll ask him on a scale of DEFCON 1 to DEFCON 5 how concerned we should be about Cam Ward being tongue-in-cheek mostly. So we will talk to Easton Freeze and talk Titans in the 4 o'clock hour. But speaking of quizzes, here is how we are starting today's show. For the first time in 4 years, I decided to bring up something I used to do on an annual basis, a Predators offseason survey. First of all, thank you to all of you who participated. We have a sturdy sample here. Hundreds of you replied to the 10-question survey. We greatly appreciate it. And there are 3 questions in particular that we are going to spend some real time on. But I thought we should start today's show by running through the other 7 that I feel are self-explanatory. Now, Willy and Derek have not seen the results of this survey. Willy told me he took the survey. Derek, did you take the survey?
Yep.
Okay, Connor, did you take the survey?
I did.
We have 100% participation.
There we
I mean,
go.
I didn't take it because it's my survey.
You still should.
You still could have taken it.
Well, I didn't, so 75% participation. But
Well,
I
you
have an
participated.
excuse.
Yeah, you
wrote
I
participated.
it.
You put
created it.
together.
I
you know,
created
yes.
it. So thank you to all of you in here and all of you out there who participated. So quickly, let's just run through the 7 questions that I feel don't need a lot of analysis.
Mhm.
Question number 1. And by the way, I will post all of the results on my Twitter feed at some point during the show. Question number 1. Which word best describes your feelings about the current state of the Predators? Optimistic, pessimistic, neutral, or skeptical? 59.9% of respondents said optimistic, followed by 19.8% neutral, 15% skeptical, 5.3% pessimistic. So nearly 60% of you are feeling optimistic. And as we discussed briefly yesterday, it makes a lot of sense. The Predators hired Chris McFarland. He's a winner. He built a winning team in Colorado. There is fresh blood in the front office. So I think a lot of the optimism has to do with that. No surprise with the answer to that question.
I would have been surprised if it were otherwise, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Because he
Me as well.
hasn't screwed anything up.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
simple. I mean, you're brand new at the job. The hope is high.
Yes,
And he's got a good track record.
he does. All right. Speaking of Chris McFarland, question number 2. On a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, how confident are you that Chris McFarland can free the Predators from the quote-unquote mushy middle? Those were his words last week at his news conference. Scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. 57.5% of respondents said 4 out of 5. 17.8% said 5 out of 5. 21% said 3 out of 5. There was around 4% total that either said 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5. So along similar lines, people are confident that Chris McFarland can be the answer for the Predators.
I think if you're, if you answered the first question, being optimistic, then it would lead you to answering the second question of that same caliber. So I can see why the numbers sort of are comparable when you talk about the first 2 questions, at least.
Yes. Question number 3. How should Chris McFarland approach this offseason? Aggressively buy, aggressively sell, or somewhere in between? 59.9% of you said somewhere in between, followed by 34.3% who said aggressively sell. Only 5.8% of you said aggressively buy. Again, no surprise there.
Nah, I mean, because there is a facet of fans out there, because we've put this question out there before, and you've been adamant about, listen, if they're gonna do it, do it. If not, then okay. But I think everybody was sort of in your camp saying, sell, sell, sell. Let's rebuild and kind of go from there.
I think too, aggressively buy is a hard thing to wrap your arms around unless you know specifically what you're buying. Like aggressively buying, if you're buying Vingen, Mason, Donick, that may not, that's aggressively buying, but what are you buying? Like if it's aggressively buying for Brady Tkachuk or, somebody that is a big name, if Austin Matthews comes on the radar,
so if
Dylan
Larkin
Larkin suddenly puts his name.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be under that category. But I think if you're answering the survey, it's hard to know what that would look like. Whereas aggressively sell, I think, is a general thing that people have been on for a long time. It's a little easier to picture.
In my mind, when I wrote down aggressively buy, I thought going after one of the big names who could reportedly be on the trade market this offseason. Next question. On a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, how confident are you that Andrew Brunette can be part of the solution? 38.4% of you said 3 out of 5. 30.2% of you said 2 out of 5. 18.3% of you said 1 out of 5. A total of 13.1%, if my math is right, 13.2% said either 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. Again, no surprise
So the
there.
biggest one was 3.
38.4%, followed by 2 out of 5 at 30.2%.
Okay. So that 3 is really the big chunk.
Yes. Nearly 2/5 of respondents said 3 out of 5.
But there were more that were in the category of 1 or 2 than there were 4 or 5.
Correct.
Okay.
Again, no surprise there. The team hasn't made the playoffs except for once during Andrew Brunette's tenure. The team has gotten off to slow starts. All of those things. It makes sense that people are not as confident in Brunette. Along similar lines, on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, how confident are you in Bill Haslam as Predators majority owner? 41.1% said 4 out of 5. 28.7% said 3 out of 5. 17.9% said 5 out of 5. So the majority of people said either 3, 4, or 5, with most people, the most amount of people saying 4 out of 5. And that, I think, goes in hand with Chris McFarland. The fact that Bill Haslam, in his first major decision, I would say, as Predators majority owner, lured Chris McFarland to Nashville, landed him. He's been receiving a lot of praise for that. So, again, that makes sense.
He hasn't done anything that would make the fans dislike him.
Now, if he would have hired Tom Fitzgerald, for example,
then
as GM,
it would have been,
it would have been a little bit different.
But I don't think, since he's been majority owner, he's done anything that would cause the fan base to turn their back on him.
Next question. How would you grade Barry Trotz's tenure as Predators GM? Derek, you and I talked about this a little bit last week. 46.8% of you gave Barry Trotz, speaking of grades, a C. So nearly half of respondents gave Barry Trotz a C. 29.7% of you gave Barry Trotz a D. Roughly the same amount of people gave Barry Trotz an F and a B. I would like to give a shout out to the 1.1% or 4 of you who gave Barry Trotz an A.
An A.
An A. And I want to know, if you're listening out there, why you would have given Barry Trotz an A. But nearly half of respondents gave him a C. Nearly 30% gave him a D. 11%-ish gave him an F. 11%-ish gave him a B. 1.1% gave him an A. Perhaps the building,
pretty harsh.
Perhaps the building of the prospect pool plays into the A. I don't know.
See, that to me is the key thing. As I thought about that question, and I'm looking at the full 4 years, I think the best thing that you can take away is what he has left Chris McFarland. Because when he took over, it was a sinking ship. Would you agree? It was It was the remnants of a window that was on its way down, not on its way up. Would you agree?
Correct.
And he touched nothing of the future and built up the pool of prospects didn't torch the salary cap or anything like that. Not all the moves worked out. There's no question about that. But I think you're being harsh if you're giving him a D based on that.
I think a C is about right, whether it's a C plus or just a C period, because just like you explained, Willie, he did some things at the beginning that put this franchise, back in a place where, okay, now we're a little bit better than what we were, and now we can start building on that. But did he do what a lot of people expected him to do in regards to the on ice play? No, the team didn't. One time they reached the playoffs.
Yep.
So I think you have this, this faction that says, well, yes, he did. He didn't touch the guys that are in Milwaukee or beyond that. He built that up. He got us picks, but he didn't accomplish what we wanted to accomplish on the ice. So it's kind of like a midterm final thing, and then you end up with a C.
So 46.8% of you give Barry Trotz a C for his tenure as GM. All right, here was the last question that I think is self-explanatory in terms of the responses. Which 25 and under player were you most encouraged by in 2025, 2026? And I said the player was 25 or younger on opening night. 57.1% of you said Matthew Wood. 23.2% of you said Luke Evangelista. 15.5% of you said Eustace Ananen. And 4.2% of you said other. I included Adam Wilsby, Ryan Efko, Reed Schaefer, Zachary LaRue, Fedor Svechkov, etc. But 57.1% said you were most encouraged by Matthew Wood among 25 and under players. Again, no surprise.
Well, I'm a little surprised. I thought there might be a
little
closer.
surprised.
I think the gap between Matt Wood and Luke Evangelista,
Yes.
I thought might be a little closer. Actually, I put Wood down, but I would not have been surprised if you had read off that Evangelista being number one. Evangelista is a very popular player among the fans, as we know.
Yes,
and he had a great breakout season. There's no question.
Ananen
So-
had a great second
Okay.
half.
Right, the last impression of Ananen, like, if you'd done that mid-season, I don't think Ananen would even have been on the radar. But what he's done since what? The Olympic break,
Right.
or somewhere
Late
around there.
February through the end of the regular
it's been
season.
pretty impressive.
Yes. So those are 7 of the 10 questions I asked on my Predators survey. There are 3 questions I want to spend some time with, including the question we are going to discuss coming up next, because some of you had some pushback on how I phrased one specific question, which is also a touchy subject with a lot of you. 615-737-1025. We will discuss that coming up next. In the meantime, today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls at First Horizon Park. First pitch is at 6:35 p.m. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina.
Let's get DMase's camera fixed so we don't see half of it.
How did that happen?
You could only see like
You were like, yeah.
How did that happen?
I want all of it. It's not just half.
What if you could have the most reliable fiber-powered Wi-Fi? And get this, what if you could keep it at the same price for 5 years? During the Xfinity Summer Savings
Bud
Event,
gave you a shout out, man. He gave Mahoney shout out.
Who did?
Bud.
Oh, yeah, I
He
saw
sent
that.
out, yeah.
Spelled Dennis wrong.
Yeah. Can't get it all right. Exactly.
DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Willy, Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. I am in charge of music today. The theme, artist from Hampton Roads, Virginia. I've got my Hampton Roads Admirals hat on.
Okay.
Repping Virginia.
The clips.
So some clips to start.
Mhm. Okay.
When I first walked in the studio, I was thinking, is that like a special Preds hat from one of the classic games they played outdoors or something? Like it's kind of related. The color
Yeah,
scheme.
the
This
colors
is
almost,
stars.
yeah.
I thought it was Chris Paul on the New Orleans Hornets.
Oh, wow.
Nope.
Yeah, or like a
Golden
Steph
State
Curry,
Warriors.
Yeah, like-
yeah,
no.
Golden State. Yeah.
This is a classic ECHL Hampton Roads Admirals hat from probably early mid 90s. Bought it on eBay.
Okay.
So,
Looks good,
What a
man.
pull.
Okay,
Yeah.
good pull.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get back to my 10-question Predator survey. In the first segment, we went through the 7 questions that I thought the results were fairly predictable, for lack of a better term. I didn't feel like we needed to analyze them all that much. But we're going to focus some time on 3 questions in particular that I found interesting. Now, here is a question that received some pushback from people who participated in this survey. It actually received pushback from someone who said that they weren't taking the survey because of the wording of this question, because they considered it to be a leading question.
Are these attorneys
Wow.
that did this?
No,
Objection, leading.
I
He's
don't.
leading the witness.
I don't think Pred Superfan 6754821 exclamation point.
Wow,
Is an
long.
attorney.
Has a legal degree. Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong,
Could be.
but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I'm not. All right, here is the question. And then I have a question for the two of you. Here is the question. Would you support a full-scale rebuild if it meant picking number 1 overall in the draft at least once? Let me start here. Do either of you have any issue with how I phrased that question?
Not a big issue. I do think it's an interesting question to debate, the wording of the question. But the question itself, I think, is what we've talked about over and over on the show, that if you commit to a full rebuild, that you're hoping to pick, if not with the first pick, you have a couple of cracks at some high first round picks.
Okay, because that's what the texter or whoever.
Some people on social
So
media.
some people, they didn't want to answer it because of the wording, not necessarily.
They felt that the wording of the question was leading.
Was leading.
Only because you can never guarantee that you'll have the first pick.
And that's what I was going to say.
Is that,
Correct.
Is that their
If
argument?
you threw that in,
Yes.
not
So let
knowing.
me tell you how I thought of this question. And first of all, this is a question that I asked verbatim. I don't know if that's the right word because I wrote it and didn't speak it. But I copy and pasted this question from the last time I did this survey in 2022. It's the same question. And actually, Rex Road, when he did the survey in 2024, used the same exact question as well. And it'll be interesting. I pulled it up. I'll share it in just a moment. It's interesting how this answer has evolved over the years. But here was my thought process behind this question. Whenever we talk about rebuilding with the Predators, the number 1 criticism we receive is, well, the worst team in the NHL isn't guaranteed the number 1 overall pick. You can be bad for years and never get the number 1 overall pick. So in this hypothetical, I am removing that barrier. I am telling you that in the process, you will get the number 1 pick at least once. I'm not telling you how long the process will take. You could be like the Montreal Canadiens, and look where they are right now. It happened pretty quickly. It's still in the process. You could be the San Jose Sharks, who have been undergoing a painstaking process. But I am telling you, I am removing that barrier that at least once, if you rebuild, you will get the number 1 pick. 69.3% of you said yes, you would take that chance versus 30.7% who said no.
And that was when you did it back then.
No, that's how I did it.
That's now. Okay.
For this time. 69.3% yes, they would support a full-scale rebuild if it meant picking number 1 overall in the draft.
Either, but not necessarily the year that you tank. You're
Correct.
just saying if you tank
The
now-
process could take 5 years.
Exactly.
The process
Well,
could take 5
But
years.
that to
the
me
process
is a
could
very
take 4 years.
I think that would be leading if you inserted that into it.
a timetable on the rebuild.
Yeah.
Because when you say full scale rebuild, that allows a lot of leeway for how long are we talking?
Mhm.
Because full scale rebuild could be 10 years.
It could.
Could be 5 years.
It could.
But you don't want to give them no options. Either you take this or you don't, because if I start
Yeah.
branching out, now I am leading you to answer it a certain
Right.
Like
way.
imagine I walked up to you on the street and said, "Hello, Predators fan. Inside of this magic box is a golden ticket, no pun intended, that will guarantee you the number 1 overall draft pick at some point during a Predators rebuild. I'm not telling you when it's going to happen. I'm not telling you how long the rebuild is going to be. But with this golden ticket, if the Predators commit to a rebuild, they will have the number 1 overall
full
pick.
scale rebuild.
Okay, well, a
Because-
full scale rebuild.
Because to me, that's the key. I'm giving you my argument, really, why I said no.
Okay.
Because I argued that they have been rebuilding, not on a full scale, but they have been steadily rebuilding while not committing to losing, which I like. I don't like just saying we're going to lose for 5 years. I don't want to do that.
So you
and-
said no to this question.
Well, that shouldn't surprise anybody.
No,
if
it does
you listen to the show.
What did you say,
I
Derek?
said
No,
no.
I wouldn't.
Full scale rebuild. I'm not down with that.
Derek,
No.
you said no?
No.
Connor, did you say yes or no to this question?
Which question? I'm sorry.
Would you support a full scale rebuild if it meant picking number 1 overall in the draft at least once? Yes
I
or
said
no?
yes.
Okay. Connor said yes.
I didn't have a problem with your wording.
Okay.
Well, when
I
you
mean,
say
that was not
full
a
scale,
problem.
that sounds like a long way for me. And they're already, what I've argued is
Mhm.
since they've already been doing this, it would be hard to go that far
Mhm.
back. It would be like figuring out you're going the wrong way on a journey and then having to backtrack a long way before you could go down the path that would get you the first overall pick. To me, that's where the net result wouldn't be worth it.
So Billy says, tank all you want. You're not guaranteed the number 1 pick overall. Too big of a gamble. That's the point of this question, Billy and others who argued with how I phrased this question. I am guaranteeing you at least once you will get the number 1 overall pick.
Mhm.
Do you take the chance knowing that? And 69.3% of people said yes. Now, here is where things get interesting. Again, I asked this exact question 4 years ago. That's when the Predators were swept out of the first round by the Colorado Avalanche. Keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Same question. 62% of people said yes. 38% said no. 2 years later in 2024, Rexroad asked the same question. This is after the Predators were coming off of the first round loss to Vancouver. They had the 18-game point streak. Rexroad asked the same question. 62.5% of people said no, they would not support it, versus 37.5% saying yes. So it's interesting to see how it's evolved over the years.
Well,
I think those
but not
teams-
surprising, really, with the last
Mhm.
taste in your mouth, right?
Exactly.
The 2022, that was the nightmare ending to what was a really good season. But when UC Saros got hurt and they had to play the Avalanche instead of the Flames in the first round, and UC Saros couldn't play and they got whipped, I think that swayed a lot of people's vote on that. And it was a pretty feel-good season a couple years ago when they
Yeah.
lost to Vancouver. And I didn't remember anybody complaining when they signed all those guys on July 1st. It was pretty exciting. So I don't think anybody was signed up at that point.
Jackson says, question should have been, how long would you support a rebuild if you were guaranteed to get a number 1 overall
Ah,
pick? A, 2 to
yeah.
3 years. B, 4 to 6 years. C, 7 to 10 years. That's a
That's
fair.
fair,
That's
fair.
a fair suggestion.
I think
But I would
Jackson.
tend to believe everyone would say A.
Yes.
A lot of the people would
A
say
lot of
A.
people would say A.
Could stomach it for a couple years, but
Yes,
after that,
exactly.
it's like, okay, we need to see something here.
Scott in Shelbyville says, so like you get the number 1 pick once guaranteed in the 55 years Toronto has been rebuilding. I don't think Toronto has been rebuilding for 55 years. But again, I have used that question before, and I wanted to see how the answer has evolved over the years. Again, the question was, and you can argue with the wording if you want, would you support a full-scale rebuild if it meant picking number 1 overall in the draft at least once? 69.3% of you said yes, you would take that chance, versus 30.7%, including Willy and Derek, who said no. I mean, the other thing too, and we talked about this a little bit, if Chris McFarland decided to do that, if Chris McFarland, and as Willy has noted many times, it may be difficult at the moment for the Predators to pull this off because of the contracts they have. But if Chris McFarland looks at the roster, he looks under the hood or whatever he said last week, and determines, hey, we really need to take a step back, and then maybe Steven Stamkos or Brady Shea or Roman Josi say, thanks, but no thanks, and he undergoes a full-scale rebuild, I do believe, based on the responses about Chris McFarland and the confidence level in Chris McFarland, that Predators fans would be more accepting of that with someone new in charge.
You know what? I'm not sure, because saying it is different from it actually happening. And when you see all these guys start to go out the door, guys that have been pillars, you tend to think about it a different way. Like, man, are we really doing the right thing by getting rid of all these guys? Yes, the thought of it sounds good, and I may be in support of it, but when it actually started happening, it's like, oh my, now how long are we going to be in this again? So it's just, for me, I think of it, and maybe it's sort of my bias in a sense, because, being a former athlete or professional athlete, is I come from the frame of the guys in the locker room, and guys have been working their tails off, busting their butts, playing, really well. And for you to come in and tell these guys that may have 3, 4, 5 years left, listen, we're going to a full-scale rebuild. And what if you're not one of those people that they're looking to trade, or you just don't want to leave? It's hard to, and maybe he has to do that. I'm not saying that GMs and owners haven't done it. Hell, the Titans did it, back in 2004. So it can be, and it will continue to be done. But I just think about it from that standpoint of, seeing where your team is at, knowing that, okay, we can possibly get some, 2, 3 more good years out of this group if we add some other guys. Going in there and telling those guys, listen, we're doing a full-scale rebuild, and we may have to get, or we will get rid of, majority of the guys that y'all have been, on the ice with. That's hard to sort of stomach as a veteran guy.
Jackson also says, am I getting Nathan McKinnon or am I getting Nail Yakupov? Again, that's the risk. I'm not telling you who the number 1 overall pick is going to be, the caliber of prospect. As we know, not all number 1 overall picks are created equal. I'm just saying you will be in that position. By the way, quickly, some breaking NFL news.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs are adding 2 years to Patrick Mahomes' contract in a reworked contract that ties him to Kansas City through 2033 at a value of $504.75 million, making it the first NFL deal valued at over $500 million.
How much was his last one?
The first deal valued at over $500 million.
I thought the last one was like 10 years for $500 million or somewhere around there. And they didn't do anything but just rework that contract, add some more money, and now it's 500.
It's a good question. I'll have to look it up.
That's a lot of money.
I feel like that was the sense when he signed originally the big second contract, that they're just going to keep reworking it.
Keep reworking.
Stay in the window, do what you need to do, and then figure it out later.
Yeah. I mean, he deserves it.
Yeah.
He's
kick the credit card bill down the road and worry about it when he's about done.
You may have to pay a lot of interest on that.
Yes.
Matthew from Jolton says, realistically, what would Stamkos, Shea, Josi, or O'Reilly fetch in a trade? They are all well past their primes, and thinking you'll get a king's ransom for them is out of the question. Well, it's a good question, Matthew. I think for Ryan O'Reilly specifically, you could get a lot.
You could get a lot.
You could get a lot for Ryan O'Reilly. He is older. Yes, he is in the latter stage of his career.
Would you get a first rounder for him?
Absolutely.
I think
that's a start.
I think you could get a first round pick for Ryan O'Reilly. He had arguably the best regular season of his career this season. He received Selke votes as the best defensive forward in the NHL. Had some good offensive numbers as well. So I think O'Reilly specifically.
Well, let's also add a couple layers. Let's take what Jordan Stahl did last night. How old is Jordan Stahl?
37, 36, 37.
I think 37. So he's older than Ryan O'Reilly, but Jordan Stahl, I think, he's bigger, he's thicker than Ryan O'Reilly, but they have a similar type of skill set. O'Reilly probably scores a few more goals, a few more points, but they both are that winning player. And I think O'Reilly, this is my theory, I think he'll still be able to do his thing for a while. And at the position they play at center, it's so hard to find those guys. Look at the contract that Michael McCarron just signed. Why? Because there's so few centers that become available. Almost none will hit the market now. So O'Reilly, people would have to overpay. That's why my position would be, and Chris McFarland's in a good position because I've said all along, he's valuable to keep. I would consider even signing him to an extension. But also, I can wait until somebody gives me to use the Barry Trotz term, the knock your socks off kind of deal. I think you could hold out and only accept something that would blow you away.
Glenn says, I don't care about draft picks when it comes to hockey. It takes too long to get them up to the NHL. Smart free agents is the way to go. Well, have you seen the free agent class this summer?
Well,
Yikes.
but let's see. I think you tie it into if you were willing to trade O'Reilly, I think you keep that in mind. I don't think you have to accept just give me a first round pick and a second round pick. I think you want somebody who is in that age range that you've been coveting, Adam, and I think everybody would agree with you that if you can get somebody in their early to mid 20s who you're going to have for a long time that already is a known quantity with, some chance for some big upside, that's what you're looking for. I think more so than draft picks because the listener is correct. Whoever you pick, if it's next year's first round pick or two, the kid's 16 years old right now. You don't know what he's going to be.
615-737-1025. We will continue the analysis of my Predators offseason survey coming up next. We'll get your reaction as well. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan and Donick 1025. The game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports coming up at the top of the hour as we transition to the Titans. But in the meantime, we are going over the results of my Predators offseason survey. And here is another question that I thought had really interesting results. You have the power to remove the trade protection from one Predators player's contract. Who do you choose? Your choices are Philip Forsberg, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Roman Josi, Brady Shea, or UC Saros. You haven't seen the results, gentlemen. Venture a guess on who the number one person was.
UC?
Derek, you're Derek. Willy?
I was very curious about Saros just based on all of the discussion
Yes.
we've had over the
Yes.
last couple of years. But I think the obvious answer is Marchessault.
You both would be incorrect.
Wow.
At 36.3%, Brady Shea, 36.3%. If you have the power to remove the trade protection from one Predators player's contract, who do you choose? 36.3% said Brady Shea. 33.2% said Jonathan Marchessault, so basically a third. 20.3% said UC Saros. 5.8% said Steven Stamkos. 2.9% said Philip Forsberg. 1.6% said Roman Josi. But Brady Shea, number one, 36.3%.
I'm really surprised at that. Not that he's played great, but he was better in his second year than his first year. He's not that old. And $7 million in this salary cap isn't that much. And what to what end? What are you going to trade? What are you going to get for him? I think I'd rather bank on him continuing to play better as he gets more acclimated than what you're going to get for him in return. So I don't understand that.
I've thought about it in a couple of ways. Based on the results, clearly a lot of people, when they read this question, again, you have the power to remove the trade protection from one Predators player's contract. Who do you choose? The leading vote getters were Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, and UC Saros. Based on those responses, people's interpretation of this question was, who has the worst contract? But I actually am more interested in the people who said Steven Stamkos, Philip Forsberg, and Roman Josi, because those players have value, more value, I would say, than Shea, Saros, and Marchessault. And if you remove...
I disagree about Saros. I think Saros would have a lot of value.
Fair. My point is this. If, for example, you were one of the 2.9% of respondents who said Philip Forsberg, if Philip Forsberg didn't have a no movement clause and you wanted to trade Philip Forsberg, you're probably going to get a good amount of assets for Philip Forsberg. He's the youngest, I think, of this group in his early 30s.
Shea's about the same age.
Coming
Close.
off of a 40-goal season. So I'm wondering how people interpreted this question. Based on the responses, it's who has the worst contract that I want the Predators to get rid of. But Brady Shea was the leading vote getter, much to your surprise.
I didn't think about what you're saying. If it's only who's got the worst contract, I'm not sure. Like, in my mind, I immediately jump to how do you make the team better? Like, if you could remove the no trade, that means you could move them. What could you get for them? I'm weighing that with everything. But Brady Shea, I would ask anybody who, I mean, I guess it's a lot of people because he got the most votes, but I would say, so what do you want them to do? Just give him away? I don't, he's too valuable to do that. And $7 million, I keep trying to pound it home. You have to get your mind out of the old salary cap. This is a brand new salary cap that stood flat for years, and now has spiked up. It's going to keep going up. $7 million in another year or two is going to be what you're going to pay your fourth, fifth, sixth defenseman, I think, in a lot of cases.
So you don't think he would, get in return what Marchessault would get if you remove the, no trade clause from him? Because that's the only reason you would go with one guy or the other. It's like, okay, if I'm rebuilding, not necessarily that I want to get, that I don't want this guy on my team anymore, or that I think he's not playing well. It's who am I going to get the most for out of one of these contracts? And honestly, it may be UC. It may be UC.
And I think with Marchessault, it may not be as much what you're going to get. And they've got other guys, and so
you think it should have been what I think it should have been Marchessault then?
Yeah, I think he was the second most popular. Right?
Yes, 33.2%, basically a third.
So each guy probably has a little bit of a different answer. If you did have that quote, what did you call it? The magical power.
The power
to do that.
Just the power. You've got the power.
It would mean probably something slightly different for every one of those guys. But the least logical to me is Shea. And it's just not realistic that Yossi or Forsberg is going to be on that list in reality.
So of those guys on that list, who do you think would garner the most in return?
In a trade?
In a trade.
Of those six?
Of those six, yeah.
I think Saros.
You say Forsberg.
I'm taking Saros off Forsberg off the. Forsberg's not going to.
I know, but
that.
He's asking.
But you're right.
He's asking the hypothetical.
Yeah,
if you remove the trade protection from one player's contract, who would get the most in return in a trade? I would say Philip Forsberg.
I think probably so.
Yes. Okay. But again, I was a bit surprised by Brady Shea. I thought that Marchessault would be number one just because, as you said, Willy, it's clear that he doesn't really seem to be a fit. And Saros, I expected Saros to have a good chunk because of all of the conversations we have about UC Saros. But Brady Shea at 36.3%, one texter says, I'd rather save the $7 million in trade Shea for whatever he can get. He's been bad, and he isn't going to suddenly get better, despite what Willy thinks. He is what he is at this point.
Well, there's just too much evidence of players around the league that's just not the case. When you say bad, like he's played top minutes. Who's going to play the minutes if he's not there? You're going to not look good. Would you agree, Adam, that he was better this year in his second year than he was in his first year? I don't think it's any.
He was better. He was better this year than he was last year. Yes, but was his better this year? What you're paying for is what people are.
No,
arguing.
But again, putting in perspective, $7 million in the upcoming years in your cap space, the expectation. You can fit a guy in there like that. He can be useful, and also I'm also factoring in his team value. He's a good team guy. And they are short on defense. But if they had a real deep defense core, then you might sway me a little bit there. But who else do they have?
No one on deck, really. Unless you think
not right now.
If you think Tanner Molendyke is ready.
No, there's no way Tanner Molendyke is going in there and playing first pair of minutes.
Or Adam Wilsby.
Adam Wilsby, I think, is on his way of being a very good piece. And I think they made a smart move. These are the little moves that I think Barry Trotz probably, if you're giving him a D, you're overlooking things like this. I think locking up Wilsby, who's a late bloomer, that his biggest problem is staying healthy. I think when he's on the ice, he's good, and he's worth what they're paying him. But I keep going back to this. The days, this roster does not have Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm, PK Subban, and Roman Josi. Right? This decor has an aging Roman Josi. And then who else, right? They've got a lot of maybes. They've got Nick Hague, who's got a very specific role. So, long story short, they need Brady Shea if they're going to be respectable. And what you're going to get for Brady Shea isn't great because his stock is a little bit down. But I would still count on the professional that Brady Shea is to continue to move back into the right direction. Here, I think he could easily go back and have a good year next year.
615-737-1025. We'll get back into the survey a little bit later in the program. Again, thank you to everyone who participated. But coming up next, Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports will join the program. There's a lot of belly aching out there about Cam Ward and his accuracy. Easton Freeze, he's been at practice. He's been writing and talking about it. We'll ask him about it coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, if you've lived in Middle Tennessee for any time, then you've seen how wild our weather can be, from winter storms, tornadoes, to flooding. We've seen it all. Even yesterday, that storm came through and knocked down trees as I was riding home. But like many of you, the winter storm earlier this year, and I'm not talking about the one that happened yesterday, that came and went very quickly, but still damaged some things around town. Caught me unprepared. I lost power for 7 days. That's 7 days in a hotel, worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst or not, out of my home. That's when I realized being prepared isn't optional. I'll be ready the next time a weather emergency happens. I started looking around for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great. But the reason I reached out to them and chose to go with them was because of the reviews and the confidence other homeowners shared about their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When Tri-State came to my home, they did a free on-site assessment and made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family's needs. The thing I appreciated the most was they didn't try to oversell me. They just got straight to the answers. Everything was turnkey. They handled everything in-house, from installation to long-term services. If anything ever goes wrong, I'm not calling around, because I hate to do that, people, and I know you do too. I'm making one call, and that's the Tri-State Water, Power, and Air, because they've got me covered, and I'm sure they will have you covered. And that's the type of relationship I want, and I know you want that as well. So look, the weather isn't slowing down. Like I mentioned, a storm came through here yesterday and knocked down some trees, and I know some people power was out and maybe still out, but be ready. Call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect your home and your family. Find them at tristatewhywait.com. That's tristatewhywait.com.
DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend, Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. Hello, Easton. How are you?
Hello, boys. How we doing?
We are doing well. Thank you for joining us. So, Easton, Cam Ward, DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, what are we talking about here?
It's over. Pack it in.
But I know that you have tried to cut through the noise and provide a nuanced take, for lack of a better word, on what you have seen from Cam Ward at OTAs. So share that with us as someone who has been at these practices. What are you seeing
Sure.
from Cam Ward?
Yeah, let's just talk about the past 2 days of practice. We were there Monday and Tuesday, and it was largely a struggle, and it was largely clunky. Those are the two words that came to mind for me both days walking out. It was hardly all bad. At the end of Tuesday's practice, the last we saw of Cam Ward was like 2 or 3 sessions, like 15, 20 minutes worth of him putting it together, and looked really good there for a couple of minutes. But it was preceded by an hour or an hour and a half of clunkiness. And that's not to be unexpected this time of year for anybody, but especially a young quarterback with so much newness around him. And it's hard to kind of put a pin in how much excuse making you get when you were the first overall quarterback, or first of all, overall pick, and you are a quarterback and you were brought in to elevate a team. And there's a lot riding on you. And that's, that's what the money's for in the NFL. Nobody cares, all of that stuff. But also it's June, and he has the unfair privilege of having to work with a brand new system, brand new coaches, and a lot of brand new teammates around him. And so in this case, I think the volatility is an enemy of progress for him. And it's hard for him to, have really any mastery of his situation right now, which is what I think is required for good quarterbacking. So it's been not as good at. People are like, so he's been bad. I don't know that he's been bad at practice. What I'm mostly concerned about is the fact that he hasn't separated himself from the other quarterbacks. He hasn't separated himself as one of the better players on the field. It still looks like a work in progress right now. And that's okay. I care at like a 4 out of 10 on the scale of 10. I care at like a 4. But it's something that you have to monitor going into training camp and in the preseason and the regular season.
I think there is, Easton, this sort of baseline of concern from Titans fans about Cam Ward after last season. You watched all the games. You covered the games. If you look at the season in 2 halves, pre-bye and post-bye, he did make, I would call, modest progress from.
Yes.
So, but there's still, again, that baseline of concern about, oh no, Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick, he isn't going to work out. When do you think it would be reasonable for fans to feel even more concerned? If not in June, does there come a point in training camp, in the preseason, early in the regular season, where fans' concern peaks to extraordinary levels that it would be justified?
I mean, I have a hard time saying it's reasonable to really panic anytime before we're playing actual games. So at the very least, after a couple of outings in September, but even then, I don't know. It's tough because it is year 2 and you need to see a leap from him. And you can't just give a guy another full season just because he has a new coaching staff and a new offense around him. But I do think it's fair to give him the first month. And if by the end of September, we're seeing no progress, we're seeing maybe he's performing worse in spots than he was at the end of last year, and it feels like he maybe took kind of a step back from where he got to last season, then we'll have to start kind of panicking. But that's really far down the road, and he's somebody that I don't expect to really see that level of play from. I think that there's a lot between now and then, and he's going to. I think the offense, I mean, this is a much larger conversation. I think the offense that they're putting him in, the way that Brian Daboll is going to ask him to play football, is so much more conducive to success for the way that Cam Ward wins that I'm not really worried about that.
Okay, with that being said, Easton, I know it's difficult for you because to put together an article or a piece on this offense, whether it be Cam Ward or the offense in general, it's hard to, because you understand that there's going to be some ebb and flow. Like you said, this is a new offense. Things are going to run a little bit different. It's not going to always be smooth. But with that being said, what if they get into the season and this offense isn't performing well? Do you believe the bulk of it would be on Cam, or would it be on everyone else outside of Cam?
Well, right now, if you came to me from the future and said, Easton, the offense is in trouble, and made me guess why, I have a pretty firm guess, and it's the offensive line. That's the area of this team I'm the most concerned about. So I think it's more likely that the situation around him, specifically the offensive line, would be the culprit for things not going very well.
Now, when you're watching Carnell Tate out there, do you believe it's more so the guys that he's playing around or with, or do you think once those other guys, those veteran guys come in, we will see a true glimpse, or get a better glimpse of what he truly can be, or where he's at in his process?
No, that's a good question, because the perspective is funny. We're hyping him up because he looks really good out there. But you do have to take a step back and wonder how much of that is because of who's practicing around him, how much of it is because of our perspective here in Nashville, what we've seen outside of A.J. Brown really in a decade plus for this team. That being said, I do think he really is just that impressive right now. And I was talking with Nick Suss at the Tennessean about this. He and I were talking earlier today. I think the things that he's showing us right now are the things that set him apart and make him worthy of a top 10 draft pick, even though he isn't the biggest or the fastest or the most productive in college history. It is this mastery of route craft, of the wide receiver position, mastery of how to be a pro and how to practice well and how to create separation even though you aren't the biggest and the fastest. Like all of these finer points on and off the field that he comes from Ohio State already having a way above average grasp of. That's what you see the most of here in a padless practice in June. And I think that's why he's blowing us away, because this is what he does.
Now, Easton, we've talked a lot about, Cam and his mishaps that he's had. And when you think about offense having a bad day, you automatically say, well, it was either drop passes or the quarterback just was off today, but not really taking into account, well, the defense may have had a lot to do with that. With that being said, how is the defense looking to you? I know they're a long ways from where they ultimately want to be, but how are they looking?
I think the defense looks fine. You want to talk about you not really knowing how to gauge something based on who's here. The defense is where we're missing a lot of guys right now, and that will change. We're assuming that everybody will be here for the mandatory minicamp next week, but we've not seen Jeffrey Simmons out there. We've not seen either of the starting outside cornerbacks out there. Quite a handful of people on the front seven, honestly. We have not seen, or front four rather, we've not seen a whole lot of. John Franklin Myers has not been here. And so it's a lot of guys that are further down the depth chart who are fine, but there is a reason why, like we keep talking about Carnell Tate's big plays being up against cornerback Micah Robinson, who, no disrespect to Micah, is not a starter on this team. So it's just hard to gauge them right now. They look fine, and they are, I'd say the one thing about them that stands out to me is the way that they're embodying a Robert Saleh approach to playing defense. It's not just Robert, it's his whole coaching staff. They know the Robert Saleh program, and they do a good job of running it every single day. That energy, that tenacity, that hair on fire, move and work as one, rotate, keep guys fresh. Like all of that is already starting to come through in practice.
Easton Freeze is with us. So Easton, what else do you think? I mean, I think we all are so hungry. We want to see how it's going to look. But at the same time, you have to try to remind yourself it's June and it's far from when you really have to see it in the fall. So what other observations did you have that give you one inkling one way or the other on the direction it's going?
Well, a lot of the observations,
like what's
right
relevant
now
and what's not. I mean, that's what we're trying to sift through.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's why people ask me this time of year, like, how does the offensive line look? And it's like, man, I don't know. And they don't know, for that matter. The only interesting thing about the linemen right now is the stuff that I can't say, which is like who's playing in what position. but I think people's guesses on that are pretty on base right now. So it's not like there's some big secret coming on that front. What is relevant? I mean, I do think that the way that skill position guys and their counterparts on defense, so the cornerbacks, the safeties, some of the linebackers that play in coverage, some of the, not really a counterpart to skill players, but like the edge rushers and the way that they are looking physically, but also their get off, their burst, some of those things you can just gauge with your eyeballs and seeing a guy in person. That stuff matters to me right now. What shape guys are in, not just in terms of their like cardiovascular health, but how big are they looking like they're trying to come into the season? How lean are they? Is there big changes on that front? That kind of thing matters. And then a lot of the stuff that matters this time of year isn't really what you see, it's what you hear. It's talking to these players and coaches about what their plan is, what the rotation is going to look like, which players are coming. One of the things I like to really pay attention to this time of year is when you listen to coaches in press conferences when they get an open-ended question about a position group, and then they volunteer a handful of names, for example, and they throw in a guy that you're not really expecting, that usually means something to me. Like a couple of weeks ago, Robert Saleh was asked a question about the linebackers. And he's like, yeah, those guys, Cody Barton and Cedric Gray and Dorian Masai. And you're like, well, hold up. You're going to throw Dorian in there. Interesting. Like that's a little nugget. Let's file that away for later. That's the kind of thing that matters to me right now.
Easton, I'm curious on, for lack of a better word, the vibe around the team with Robert Saleh at the helm. I have to imagine that it's a lot different than under Brian Callahan, but especially when I was covering teams, I always thought it was interesting when a new coach would come in and just to get a sense of what feels different around the team, how the team practices, how the team talks, all of those things. So now that you've had an opportunity to be around a Robert Saleh coach team, what stands out to you? What's different from the previous regime?
Man, this is probably a more boring answer than you were looking for, but kind of not a whole lot, if I'm being totally honest.
Fair enough.
It's spring ball. Everybody's excited. It's a new coaching staff that hasn't given anybody a reason to dislike them. They know what they're doing. These coaches are veterans. There really is nothing substantive that's different. Here's what will eventually be different and is worth paying attention to, and we've not gotten there yet. How do these guys respond to the coaching when something goes wrong? When they have a bad day of joint practices, which we're going to see quite a bit of, it sounds like. When a preseason game, a couple of promising guys get some run and they don't do very well out there. Like when things go wrong, what is the reaction? And that's one of the things that was always a little bit different than you might expect from the Callahan regime. I don't think that coaching staff ever lost the locker room while Brian Callahan was still here. And I talked to players even today, like well in hindsight, where you'd think, well, now they'd probably admit it. And they still say, we never really lost faith in that coaching staff. It kind of just all happened so quickly. And we were all just shell-shocked by how quickly the season went downhill. So I guess that's a credit to a coaching staff that ultimately was a failure. Robert Saleh's coaching staff, I would hope, is even more than that. What's the word I'm looking for? Like that, inspiring when things go poorly, able to light a fire under guys quickly if things go poorly, because this team's not going to come into this year and be a juggernaut all of a sudden just because they replaced a bunch of stuff. They're going to struggle. What's that going to look like?
Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. Of course, as I just said, you can read all of his Titans coverage at A2Z Easton, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up soon.
Talk to you guys next time.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Easton had to say and continue the Cam Ward conversation coming up next. 615-737-1025. All of our offseason coverage here on 1025 The Game is presented by Tennessee Brew Works. Raise a glass with Tennessee Brew Works, proud partner and official craft beer of the football offseason coverage here on 1025 The Game.
Hey, Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting some type of goal to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some good news because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Thanks to Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports for joining us. The Cam Ward accuracy conversation, it's popped back up. As I joked with Easton, is it DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2? You tell me. But even Jim Wyatt of the Tennessee Titans official website has pointed out how Cam Ward has performed so far in OTAs. He wrote yesterday, quote, in the 4 open OTAs, I have Ward at 49 of 88 in 7-on-7 and team periods combined. Can Ward be better? Yes. Has he been bad during OTAs? No. And as we discussed, I believe this was yesterday, Willy Donick, you do not care about completion percentage in practice.
No, not in a 2-day span. Now, if it's every day for a month, now we gotta look at that. I mean, how you practice is important, but no context completion percentage where you don't know based on those numbers. At least I don't know. Maybe the person that accomplishes it or tabulates it might know if you're working on blitz packages, you're working on play action, you're working on third down, you're working on third and long, you're working on third and short. What's the situation? There's no context to those numbers. And as I said repeatedly, if you want me to have a great completion percentage for my quarterback in practice, and I'm the coach, I can make that happen. If that's the important thing, just call a bunch of little dump passes, screen passes. Heck, I could do that. I could play quarterback in a Titans practice and have a high completion percentage. We're not talking yards. We're not talking about the result of the play, just whether the pass is complete or not. I got that. Just let me talk to my play caller and say, Derek's going to line up 5 yards for me. I'm going to take the snap. I'm going to throw it to Derek. I'm 100% completion percentage. Is that good? So you have to provide context is my point.
So, Derek, let me
Yes.
read from Easton's latest report on OTAs. He mentioned some of this in our conversation with him, but I will read from his report at ADZesports.com. Quote, in the case of this quarterback, meaning Ward, volatility is the enemy of progress. Incremental progress is what we come to summer practice to see from starting quarterbacks in particular. For a guy who showed plenty of flashes as a rookie, we want to see slightly better technique. We want to see better accuracy. We want to see a better mastery of the sport. These are the things we look for in a year 2 leap, which begins right now. But after a rookie year that might best be described as survival, or in Willy's word, the gasoline fire, Ward is surrounded by a ton of newness. He has a whole new coaching staff. He's learning a whole new offense, and he has a lot of brand new teammates. Each practice I've attended so far, that newness has shown through in some negative ways.
It's gonna happen. There are going to be good days. There are going to be bad days, especially early on. You can't expect. And listen, I know people are gonna say, well, he's the number 1 pick. He's the number 1 overall pick, so he should be this or he should be that. And based upon his where he was drafted, then yeah, you would like him to be that person. Hence, that's why they drafted him first overall. But if I just hand you something that you've never seen and gave it to you, and then 2 days later tell you, okay, that binder of 500 pages and 20 plays on those 500 pages, I want you to go out and run all of them right now. And you need to be accurate on you. You'd be like, I can't do that. Yeah, I'm good at my job. I'm good at, but I can't do that. I got to learn the book first. I got to learn the guys that I'm throwing to second. I got to master. There's more things that I have to master that the wide receiver doesn't, that the running back doesn't. The only person that comes close to that is probably the center, because he has to know all of that. I'm talking about on offense. It's the center, because he is an extension of the quarterback, especially when it comes to fronts and stuff like that. So you can't, after a couple of weeks and a couple of practices, think that, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. Again, if this is happening once we started getting to later in camp, and I'm talking about 2 days, and start playing games and start playing these where the team comes in and you practice against them. If we're seeing a guy that isn't developing, then okay, that's when the conversation needs to be started. But right now, it doesn't. It just, you don't know how hard that job is until you're in that seat. I played on the same field. I didn't even know how hard Mac's job was. And I played with him. So to look at Cam and say, listen, it has to get better. I know that. I'm not saying that. But after 2 weeks, I really don't. I'm like, Willie, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, but let's see what happens when, the full team gets together, offense and defense, they're in camp and grueling, they're playing against other people, practicing against other teams. Let's see how he is then. Then we can have that conversation. But right now, it's just, I know why we got to have it, but let's not pour more gasoline to try to start a bigger fire.
Here's something else, Willie, that I've been thinking about. If I recall correctly, we know Cam Ward has the arm talent. We know he is athletic, but I don't think he was an incredibly accurate passer in college. The Titans would have had to know that when they drafted him. They would have drafted him in spite of his lack of precision. So the accuracy concerns, like, should we be surprised by them? Because again, you can look at fancy stats. I have them in front of me that would suggest that Cam Ward was one of the least accurate passers in his draft class. So it's just something I've been wondering about, because I think a question a lot of people have is, can Cam Ward's accuracy improve to a significant degree? But Cam Ward wasn't a 70% passer in college.
Yeah, I don't remember all the specifics on the accuracy in college. I don't remember it being bad, but certainly a question. And with his unique delivery, very few players that I can think of throw the ball quite like him. Would you agree? Like, he's got a pretty unique way of releasing the ball. And so that was going to have to be something you look for. And you know me, I thought it was a reach to pick him with the very first pick, but that's way water under the bridge at this point. I think you would be, I'll go back to what I felt, what I said earlier in the week. If you're just looking at the numbers and the analytics and saying to yourself, he'll grow out of it, it's just a matter of time. You have to put in perspective just how far he's got to go. Those numbers are way down. So he's got a long way to go just to get back into the picture of being a franchise quarterback. And there are a lot of variables, as DMase has pointed out. And the one thing that I take the most solace in is I know he is going to work on his weaknesses. There's not going to be a day that he doesn't put everything he's got into getting better at these things.
Okay. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, because you're right, Adam. He was one of those guys that when he came out, there was some issues. How is he going to be able to adapt? The accuracy, is that going to be a problem moving forward? I can give you, and I'm not saying he's going to ultimately end up being these guys. I hope he does. But Josh Allen had accuracy issues coming out of college. Lamar Jackson, that was the talk on him. What you do is, and then last season, we talked a lot last season, and you brought up the stats. The yardage the ball was in the air for Cam Ward, it was one of the highs in the league at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
He was working top to bottom. And when that was happening, I'm thinking, you can't do that to him. You're going to get more inaccurate passes. You're going to get more incomplete, especially the guys that he's throwing to, young guys. You're going to get more incomplete passes than you are trying to work from the bottom to the top. And what happened after that bye when they changed? They changed coaches. They fired one, put McCoy in. Bohart agreed. They redesigned some things as far as philosophy, what they wanted to do from the passing game. He started going from the bottom to the top. They started working with the short stuff. That's why we saw a lot of screens. They started working to the intermediate, and he looked like a better quarterback, getting the ball out of his hands a lot quicker. When you're trying to work top to bottom in the NFL with a young guy, it's not going to work out for you. You may get some wild plays, i.e. Will Levis. You may get some wild games, but you're not teaching him fundamentals on being patient. You're not. So when Cam started working on bottom to top, he started to get a little better. This offense, that's why I think, Dabo was so That's why they wanted him in New York based upon the offense they were going to run. And I think that's one of the reasons that Dabo took the job was I got an offense that is catered to this guy. We're not going to try to push the ball all the time down the field. We're going to work with the quick game, getting the ball, things that he does well.
One texter says, has Cam had access to the new playbook over the past few months? Seems like they would give that to him as early as possible to study.
Yeah, he did. But again, I don't think people really understand like the complexities inside of a playbook. How a playbook is like an encyclopedia. No lie. Matter of fact, I am going to bring one to you guys tomorrow. Just the pages. I don't have the actual bind, but just the page, something like half of it. But it's still, you two guys, y'all love analytics and all this stuff. Y'all would look at it and be like, gosh, how do y'all remember all of this? Like it's the complexity to this playbook. And it's probably even more complex now than it was when I had it. So if I drop that in your lap, I do expect you to learn it, but I can't expect you to master it. Not even in a full year, I can't expect you to master it.
To your point, Derek, I'm looking at Cam Ward's air yards per attempt by game last season. We did make a big deal of Cam Ward averaging 10.8 air yards per attempt in his NFL debut at Denver, going from 1 to whatever. 10.8, 7.2, 6.2, 8.2, 10.9. Those were his first 5 weeks. By later in the season, post-bye, you're getting 7.1, 5.0, 6.2, 5.1, 6.4, 5.8. So the air under the ball came down significantly as the season progressed, which is I think the point you were trying to make.
Yeah, because what you try to do is give your quarterback some easy reads and easy throws, especially a young quarterback. You don't want to have him, looking to throw the deep ball first, which means he has to wait for the defense to open up, which means he's probably missed 2 guys that came scot-free or came free that he could have thrown the ball to in the second half of the season. That's why I want people to understand is that when they started putting in a system or start running this system where Cam could read it quickly and get the ball out of his hands quickly, he became a better quarterback than what he was the first half of the season. And Dabo believes that. So that's the type of offense. Why do you think they went out and got Wan'Dale Robinson? Because he gets open very quickly.
By the way, congratulations to former Tennessee Titans offensive lineman Aaron Brewer, who reached agreement today on a 3-year, $52.5 million extension that makes him one of the highest paid centers in the league.
Tough as a $2 steak.
Absolutely.
Would you have expected that from Aaron Brewer as a member of the Tennessee Titans?
He's always been what he is.
Yeah. He's a good player,
yes,
but undersized.
Undersized, which a lot of people, when the team didn't do well, he was an easy guy to pick on. But I always thought that he's a great success story. It's a little, to me, like a Michael McCarron kind of thing, where certain guys who aren't perfect, right? They end up, when things aren't going well for the team, people really lean on their weaknesses and ignore some of the strengths and who they are. It's not like Aaron Brewer was the first round pick, picked with the 10th overall pick or something. He was always an overachiever who's now turned into a really good success story, who got a bad rap when things were going bad. He was a great role player when the Titans were good, right?
Yeah.
So I give him all the credit. I'm a little surprised he got that big of a deal. Kind of like people are surprised that Michael McCarron got it, but he's got a lot going for him.
615-737-1025. We'll continue the Cam Ward conversation coming up next. We have a texter with an interesting question for us to debate coming up next. I also do have a question for Derek about something that's happening or perhaps not happening at OTA. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you talking Cam Ward. Andrew on our text line says, if we wanted to play devil's advocate, what would the three of you vote on as the most important quarterback stat going into 2026 that Cam needs to improve on? Is it QBR, team win-loss record, passing touchdowns to interceptions ratio, something else? So as we evaluate Cam Ward in year 2, is there a specific statistic that you will be looking at more than any other to determine whether he is taking a step forward?
QBR for me.
I would agree with that.
I think if I could pick one, the wins and losses, to me, that's not an individual stat. I mean, that's the bottom line. But I'm putting it in context by saying I'm not that worried about the wins and losses this year. Now, when the new stadium opens, I think it's time to really start tabulating. It's time to start winning by then. It'll be his third year. They'll have time to put around the pieces that they want. It's a building process. I'm going to be much more interested in wins and losses that year. So for me, it's one thing. If you had to pick one, QBR.
I think in today's football, I think it's a lot of times if you're winning, it's because of what the quarterback is doing or not doing, more so what he is doing as far as, running the offense as efficient as he possibly can and making those plays that he needs to make. I think in football some years ago, you can have a quarterback that's okay, maybe a little bit below that, but if you have some really good things around him, you because it wasn't as pass happy as it is now, the league wasn't geared toward what it's geared toward now. You can sort of hide your quarterback in a situation like that. But now you can't do it. So QBR, yes, for me, but also with that will bring, I believe, the wins that should come. Also, when I talked about the offenses and everything, it was brought to me that, situations like Steve McNair going from Les Steckel to Heimerdinger, those offenses were like night and day. They were like night and day. Willie would tell you those offenses were like night and day. I was a part of both of them, and I can tell you it was like night and day. Not that Steckel's offense was bad, because it wasn't, but Steckel's offense was geared a different way. He didn't ask a lot, especially of a young Steve McNair. They were not asking a lot of Steve at that time. He's a young quarterback. You're trying to get him through. You built the team around him. You go out and get Eddie. So Eddie becomes the focal point. Then once we switch, you start to see that maturation process from Steve, because the offense was different. It was geared more towards Steve's skill set. Eddie started to get phased out a little bit in that offense. And then the receivers became a little bit more of the offense. And it was more so balanced. Whereas in the Les Steckel offense, it was more heavy run and throw it to the tight end. Then we're going to try to hit some deep strikes down the field at the time with Chris Sanders, or some of the other guys that we had. But when they brought Heimerdinger in, and it took Steve a minute to learn that offense. It took us all a minute to learn that offense. But it was about making progress within the offense. And Steve did, because it ultimately, in that offense, he won an MVP.
On another note, Derek, I have a question for you. I saw this at the bottom of Paul Kaharski's OTA notebook at his website. Quote, I know most guys are going to miss some OTAs, but I look at Derrick Henry in May and June of 2023. Henry was not in the habit of attending OTAs, yet with new coordinator Tim Kelly taking over, he made it a priority to come to Nashville to be with the team to learn the new offense. Jeffrey Simmons has been around a bit. He was here today, this was yesterday, as a non-participant, but I would have liked to have seen him follow the same example. As for new guys, I don't see why John Franklin Myers and Cordell Flott haven't been around and why we've seen so little of Alontae Taylor. If they've got a good reason for not being here, they should let it be known. If they feel they are serving themselves better training on their own, well, they are supposed to be key team guys and they got significant contracts. Do you have any issue with the veterans, but specifically the new veterans, not being at voluntary, I emphasize that word, OTAs?
Yes. No, but okay, from this standpoint,
I think that's a yes.
yeah, but it's not a yes because I think these guys will not ultimately be leaders, and these guys will not come in.
And mandatory
ready to
mini
work.
camp is
Exactly.
next week.
And it's that. So I say yes, but it's like, okay, I get it, but here's the reason why I would have loved to see these guys, even Jeff on the field. And I go back, it's not, I don't even look at it from a Derrick Henry standpoint. I remember when I, signed with the Baltimore Ravens and they had OTA days. It was new to me. So I felt I needed to be there. I felt that they were bringing me in to change to help, the offense and to help the quarterback develop, and to be a leader, one of the leaders on that offense. So how would it have looked if they just signed me, OTAs was like a couple of weeks later, and I wasn't there? Regardless of I understand you have family things, but you got to understand your family should, and they do understand that, okay, I need to be, at least this year, I need to be here, wife, kids. I'm going to leave y'all for a couple of days, or y'all come with me. And we'll find out, we'll get in a hotel, or we can use that time spent looking for a house. But in the meantime, in the morning, I'm going to be at the facility doing things with the guys because they are bringing me in and I need to get up to speed as quickly as possible. So from that standpoint, I think that all of those guys should have been there regardless. Because again, it's not like the guys that they just signed here was here last year. And it's not like this is the coaching staff from last year. It's not. Everything is new. So if everything is new, then I need to be there. One, to learn the offense or the defense. Two, to be there as a leader, to show guys like this all new. We're all in this together. Again, I don't want to make a big deal out of it because I don't think ultimately if they had meshed, come July, August, September, it is not because, those guys missed those couple of days of OTAs. I don't think that would be a direct correlation, but I would say it means a lot to those young guys when they see a veteran out there working with them because everything's new to everybody. So I think that means a lot. So I don't understand why, again, outside of family things, but then again, it's like your family know this is how we put food on the table. So I gotta be here a couple of days. I gotta be here a couple of days, at least the first year.
I completely agree. Now, we don't know one way or the other why they're not on there yet.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a legit reason. But in general, yeah, I think you should be there. It's new guy, just got paid. Yeah. New culture, get there. Should be on there.
One texter says they're multimillionaires. Heaven forbid they show up for a few days in the offseason. I mean, this is a storyline every offseason at this time when veteran player XYZ doesn't show up for OTAs. I feel like we were talking about this with Jeffrey Simmons last year, probably, and maybe even the year before. It's a storyline. But I do understand your point, Derek. With a new coach in place, these veterans who joined the team in free agency, John Franklin Myers, Cordell Flott, Alontae Taylor, I think it would set a good example for them to be out there as they are trying to grasp a new system, a new environment. And I know there will be people who say it's voluntary, which is true. They are not obligated to show up. But I do think, to your point, Derek, it would be beneficial for everybody involved if they did make an appearance.
I just think when you're a team, an organization like the Titans, where you're in, it's like you're trying to set yourself up for long-term success. You know where you've been. These players that are coming in, they know where you've been. So why would you cheat yourself of any day? Seriously, just think about it like that. If I know I've been the laughing stock, basically, of a league, we're getting a new coach. It seems like the organization is taking a turn. Why would I cheat myself of those days, especially a new guy? Like, I'm not going to cheat myself out of those days. I'm just not, because the more I cheat myself out of those days, I'm cheating the team. So that if if these guys have been here with this coach 2 years, if this happened next year with this team, with the certain players were not here for OTAs and they had a good, I'll be like, okay, all right, we're good. Because I know they've put in the work. They've shown it. The development is there. They had a much better record than they did last year. This team looked like they're going places. So if these same guys say, okay, next year, OTAs, I'm going to be here for mandatory, but OTAs, I got may have some things to do. Okay, even though I want you here, but okay, I get it. But new coach, new team, your new ass need to be here. That's basically how I see it. I just don't understand. Like, don't cheat your team, don't cheat yourself. And I know they're not doing it on purpose. I'm not saying, but those are the little things that you got to look back at. And when your career is done, because I've looked back over mine, and there's some things like, man, I wish I would have done this or this and that. But these are the things you don't like. You don't want to cheat yourself out of stuff like this.
One texter says, if it's a player on a new team, draft pick or free agent, it should be mandatory.
They can't make it mandatory. That's just within the collective bargaining. You can't make it mandatory. But you should make it mandatory yourself. That should be a self thing. Like, I need to be there, to learn my teammates, to learn what they're doing on offense or defense, to get a lay of everything, meet, talk and sit down and meet with everybody. And I'm sure they've done that, but it's nothing like doing it with those guys out there on the field when you're there.
Do you see a difference between being there but not participating in the practice as opposed to not being there at all?
I would rather all of them had been there. Now, they can't help who participates because the coach may say, I don't want you to participate, and I'm pretty sure, Salah probably told Jeffrey Simmons that. I don't want you, you don't need to be out here. But it's good that he's in the building, that guys are seeing him.
Let's quickly go to Kevin on our phone line. Kevin, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks for taking my call. Look, I think I know the answer to that question, which is a great question. Why aren't they coming? And it's because we have a culture problem. Like, back when you were on the team, like, we had dogs. Like, we had a culture established by veterans that, like, were adopted by, non-veterans, but mid-level, kind of like 3-year-ish guys. And then that disseminated down to the rookies. And so people had a mission that they were ready and bought in to accomplish. And that doesn't exist with the Titans. It hasn't existed in a while. And it's top down. It's from Amy down. She's created a scenario where that has been eroded. Now we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity right now with leadership change, and it has to happen now, for that buy-in to accumulate, and for it from a mental standpoint, have a psychology of bringing the dog back, right? And so until that happens, and I don't even know if we have the veteran leadership on the team to make that happen. And listen, I'm a business person. Sometimes people have contract issues. They hold out. They got to do what's good for their family. Like I get that part, but that's in the minority of cases. But from a majority standpoint, we have a culture issue. And until that gets resolved, people are going to miss OTAs and they're not going to be bought in. And the end result is going to show. So I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Kevin. 615-737-1025. We will continue to take your reaction on this. Also coming up, we will get back into the results of my Predators offseason survey. By the way, I have posted the results at Adam Vingan on Twitter/X if you want to look at them yourself. But there is one result that's been eating at Willy Donick for the past hour. He's been typing furiously on his phone. And we will get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. A big thank you to all of you who participated in my Predators off-season survey. Hundreds of you responded. Again, I appreciate it. Earlier in the program, we went over most of the results. There is still one question that we haven't discussed, which we will do, and then Willie's got a gripe with a lot of you. Let me see if I can find the specific percentage of people that Willie Donick has a gripe with. I think Willie Donick has a gripe with, let's do my quick math here, 40.8% of you responded to this poll. We'll get to that. But here is the question we have not discussed, the final question of the survey. And again, I have posted all of the results at Adam Vingan on Twitter/X if you want to see them. But here's the question we have not discussed. When do you expect the Predators to make the Stanley Cup playoffs again? Next season, 2026-27. The season after that, 27-28. The season after that, 28-29. Or the season or seasons after that, 29-30 or beyond. Pretty evenly split here. The biggest group, 29.9% of people said they expect the Predators to make the playoffs again in the 2028-2029 season, meaning nearly 30% of people expect the Predators to miss the playoffs each of the next two seasons. 29.9%, followed by 2027-2028 at 27.6%, 29-30 or beyond at 23.6%, and next season at 18.9%. But the majority, well, it's not really a majority because it's almost like evenly split here. The biggest group, 29.9%, said they do not expect the Predators to make the playoffs again until 2029, meaning that the Predators, according to these voters, will miss the playoffs each of the next two seasons. So that would be 5 out of 6 years with no playoffs for the Predators.
Is that in the midst? So if you don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs in the next 2 years, you're believing that there will be significant changes.
That could be part of the
to this
equation.
team.
Yes.
And changes meaning more geared more toward rebuilding than anything. Because you can't look at this team and have the optimism that you have for the new GM and say 2 years. I'm surprised it's not next season, honestly, because, again, you don't know what the GM is going to do. What if the GM goes out and he's in a mood where, okay, I'm going to make a move for Dylan Larkin, and I'm going to trade futures for Dylan Larkin, maybe a player. And you do that. So now that puts them in a different sort of class, in a sense of, are they going for a playoff run or are they not? Do they, because they want to be consistently winners. They just don't want to get into the playoffs every so often. So I'm optimistic of this team. I'm optimistic with the GM. I think that this team, if you add a player possibly or remove a player to do some things, this team is closer to being a perennial playoff team that I think they're not.
I found this very difficult to answer because Chris McFarland hasn't made one move.
Yes,
yet.
there are a lot of unknowns.
I'd love to revisit this question during training camp.
We could do that.
I think that would be a much better gauge on expectations because, like DMase just pointed out, a few moves one way or the other could sway your answer in a big way. So I wasn't sure how to answer it. It would start to me with, is Ryan O'Reilly still on the team at the start of the season? So that would be the first thing that I would want to know before I answered that question.
But what did you say? Because you did have to answer the question now.
So I said that as a default, you begin this is my reasoning. You start but unless you're completely breaking it down, I start the season with the hope that you're going to make the playoffs. So I said this year. Expectation, I don't know, but I just said, I don't think I don't know what the plan is yet. And so it's hard for me to say 2 years, 3 years, 4 years when I don't know how they're going to approach it. So I just defaulted by saying, I hope they make the playoffs this year.
Derek, what was your response to this question?
Next year, this year,
This coming
upcoming
season.
Yes,
2026, 2027.
yes.
Again, 29.9%. It was really close. 29.9% said 2028, 2029, which means nearly 30% of the people who voted think the Predators are going to miss the playoffs in each of the next 2 seasons, which again would be 5 years, 5 times in 6 years with no playoffs for the Nashville Predators. I was actually surprised by the number of people who said 29, 30 or beyond, 23.6%.
Right.
There are some people out there who think it's going to be years until the Predators make the playoffs again. But I understand there, and your point is well taken, Willie. There are a lot of unknowns. I waited until Chris McFarland was hired to do this. But you're right. I could have waited until July 2nd, for example, to do this, to see what they do in free agency or in the draft. And I agree with you. I do think it would be instructive to perhaps revisit these questions after free agency, during training camp, and see if people's answers change. But I do think it's interesting at this point in time that there is no overwhelming answer to this question. We saw in some of the other responses, there was an overwhelming majority for one or the other. This one was the tightest vote of all of the questions I asked, which I found to be interesting.
That's why I think the most intriguing questions, the 2 most intriguing questions to me, are grading what you think you saw from Barry Trotz, and also the question about if you could magically give yourself the ability to trade one contract.
You have the power to remove the trade protection from one player's contract.
Because those are relevant and answerable right now. The other ones, a lot of the other ones anyway, are philosophical and speculative, and we don't really know what Chris McFarland is going to do yet. So it's hard to, you're just trying to predict the future with a lot of unknown variables.
And this is why I'm not a pollster, and that's why I'm a radio host. Let's go to Rob on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Rob, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen, and great takes. I appreciate it. So I have a stronger take. I think that if you think about how Nathan McKinnon was drafted and cultivated by the Avalanche, he wasn't, they weren't in first place when they did that. And I think that what you need is a generational talent that you have to think of and plan for. And in order to do that, you have to completely rebuild. Thinking about O'Reilly, or what are we going to do with O'Reilly, or what are we going to do with Stamkos, or for that matter, Forsberg, and the supporting cast all around them, I think that they're going to tear it right down to the brass tacks and rebuild and get after a generational talent. We'll be lucky to see the playoffs in 3 to 4 years. That's my take.
Thanks, Rob. Well, again, there are limitations to what Chris McFarland can do. Now, Chris McFarland can do a deep dive into the organization. He and Rob Blake, his new number 2, they can do a deep dive into the organization, and they could come to the realization that this team's future looks kind of bleak right now, or the near future looks kind of bleak right now. The best course of action would be to do what Rob was suggesting on the call. And then Chris McFarland probably calls Roman Josi and Steven Stamkos and Brady Shea and so on and so forth. And he tells them, this is what we're going to do. And it could be up to those players to say, you know what? That's not what I signed up for when I signed this contract. I will waive my no movement clause. You find me a new home. And then it's easier to do what Rob was suggesting. But I have a hard time imagining that happening. To answer my own question, when do I expect the Predators to make the playoffs again? As you mentioned, Willie, it's speculative. It's philosophical. I don't expect the Predators to make the playoffs again until at least not next season, but the season after. I would predict right now that the Predators do not make the playoffs next season, perhaps the year after. I would have said 2027, 2028. But we'll see what happens with Chris McFarland, Rob Blake, in the new Predators front office.
Well, to me, a part of the equation that is essential is when Chris McFarland and Rob Blake, as McFarland put it, look under the hood. I really want to know, I would love to know what their evaluation is of the top 15 prospects, because that goes directly to what you're saying. Is it are you 2 years away? Are you 3 years away? What do you have in the likes of Brady Martin, Igor Surin, Riker Lee, even guys that you've already seen at this level and you're wondering where their career is going in the next 2 years? Reed Schaefer, Joachim Kemmel, Zach LaRue, Tanner Molendijk. I mean, there's a long list of guys that are all sitting there and they're at various levels of development. And you're asking, what is that player going to look like in 2 or 3 years? First of all, you're going to have to downsize that list. They're not all going to make it, even if they're all good. So you have to try to use some of them on the ice on your team, but also figure out who do you want to try to package and move to get other key pieces. So what they think they have in that group is essential. They might be looking at it and going, you know what? You guys might think these guys are the number 5 prospect pool in the league. We don't see it that way. We think it's more 15. So any number of things could happen. It's a fresh set of eyes. It's a fresh set of ideas. But I think a lot is riding on that group, maybe more so than anything else, besides what to do with Ryan O'Reilly. To me, that's still the first thing that they've got to figure out is it better that we keep O'Reilly and take the value that he's got? Do we want to extend him for a year or so? Or do we shop him around and see if we can get something that does really move the needle with some certainty because of the premium and the lack of players at his position that are going to be on the market this summer?
615-737-1025. All right, coming up next. Willy Donick has a problem with 40.8% of you, not 40.8% of the city of Nashville. That would be a lot of people. But 40.8% of people who participated in our survey. And he'll tell you why coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game. DMase, Vingen and Donick 1025, the game. A little slow jam for your drive home. Some Blackstreet.
Mhm.
The theme of today's music, artist from my region, Hampton Roads. We've had Clips, NERD, Missy Elliott, Timbaland. Now we have Blackstreet.
Mhm. I didn't know they were from the Virginia
Teddy
area.
Riley. Teddy Riley set up in Virginia Beach for a while.
Oh, okay.
I went to school with his daughter.
Hmm.
So
Cool.
I consider them
6 degrees of Adam Vingen.
I consider them a part of the fabric of Hampton Roads.
And therefore DVD.
There you go.
Yes.
Is Adam no diggity?
No doubt.
I mean,
back it up.
that would have been the easy choice because No Diggity is a great song, but Don't Leave Me, I think, is underrated.
You try to work out to the fringes a little bit.
Yes.
Expand people's horizons. I like that.
Deep
I
cut.
appreciate that. A deep cut. Cutting edge.
I'm glad you appreciate that. But I know there's something that you don't appreciate, Willy Donick. As we were going through the results of my Predators offseason survey, one of the questions I had was, how would you grade Barry Trotz's tenure as Predators GM? It has now come to a close after 3 seasons with the hiring of Chris McFarland. Last week, Derek and I talked about how Barry Trotz's tenure will or should be remembered. But this was the question. How would you grade Barry Trotz's tenure as Predators GM? 46.8% of you gave him a C. 29.7% of you gave him a D. 11.1% of you gave him a big fat F. 11.3% of you gave him a B. 1.1% of you gave him an A. And I would love to hear from those people. But Willy, this has bothered you for like the last 2 hours.
It doesn't bother me. A C is fair. I think a C is fair. If we could split it, I think a C plus B minus could be very much in the discussion. That may well have been more of the range. I have a problem with a D or an F. I just don't see how you could arrive at that. And I will start it by saying, what did he take over? He took over a team that had already decided to break it down. He was coming in literally as David Poile was trading 4 veteran players off a team that it was decided that the window to win with that nucleus had closed. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So given that, I know there are some headliner moves that definitely didn't go well. And that tends to be the case. When the team doesn't do really well, people will lean on, hey, remember, it didn't go well. And remember when he did this, he traded Alex Carrier for Justin Barron. That tends to be what you emphasize, right? And I will grant you, that's at the top of the list of trades that didn't go right. But when you list all of the things he did, I went and jotted down, you mentioned last segment, I was feverishly typing. I was just trying to make notes of all of the trades that he made. And we can go through some of them if you want. But I just don't see how you look at all of those collectively and come up with a D. Especially when you consider the big theme. Took over a program that's window was closed. Where do you go? And he did not touch any future assets. He did not trade a first-round pick. I don't believe he traded a second-round pick. He did not touch any of the prospects and trade any of those guys. He got draft picks for Blankenberg, Jankowski, McCarron, Nyquist, Bunting, Cole Smith, Parsonen, Tomasino, Stastny. Not to mention some other trades that are in there, like Ryan McDonough, where they got a second-round pick. So he bolstered the draft capital that they have, and they haven't even used a lot of those picks yet. So they have a deep prospect pool that is now rated in the top 5 or 6 based on The Athletic. That's arguable. That's subjective, but I think that's a good independent group that has evaluated them. A lot of that's Barry Trotz. So, again, I'm not arguing for an A. I'm not arguing even for a B. I gave him a B. But a C, I think, is fair. A D or an F, I don't see that. I really don't see that. And you said 40% of the audience gave him a D or an F. I just don't know where that's coming from.
Yes. So here's one thing, Willie, that Derek and I talked about last week regarding the evaluation of Trotz. I do think his evaluation will improve in hindsight if a lot of the prospects he drafted turn out to be really good players. If Brady Martin and Riker Lee and Igor Surin and Cameron Reed, if those players become a part of the next generation of the Nashville Predators, they become core players once the current core players move on and or retire, people will remember Barry Trotz's tenure here more fondly. I think there are a couple of things working against Trotz in this evaluation. One, as you mentioned, when things don't go well, you look back at all of the moves that he made. The spending spree on July 1st, 2024, a lot of people will look back at that and not be as excited as they were when it actually happened.
Clearly not. Clearly not.
But
I would remember that, and on the day that it happened, I don't remember one person saying this is bad. There's no way they shouldn't have done this. True? Now the pieces didn't fit together as well. And I do think if you're really digging down and saying, did they really look at how those pieces would fit? That might be the best criticism you can make there.
The other thing, too, I mentioned with Derek, his loyalty to Andrew Brunette, I think probably led people to giving him a lower grade.
So you think they would have done a lot better if they had changed coaches?
I can't speak for them, but as I have joked many, many times, if Barry Trotz wasn't Andrew Brunette's boss, he would have probably been fired 3 or 4 times. But I do think his loyalty to Brunette probably played a factor in it. Some people, I know Willie, for example, you find it admirable. Other people may not. But I do think it played into that. And I also think there is an idea that Trotz straddled the fence a little bit too much. He made a comment at the trade deadline about serving 2 masters. He made trades he did sell at the deadline, Cole Smith and Michael McCarron and Nick Blankenberg and Michael Bunting. But he could have, if he wanted to, he clearly didn't. If he wanted to, he could have traded Ryan O'Reilly. He could have made other trades. He could have sold even more. But he wanted to give the team a chance to compete for the playoffs. I think there are fans out there who thought Trotz, as we joked so many times, pick a lane, Barry. I think there was some of that involved in the evaluation as well. Those would be my reasons if I am assuming why people gave him a low grade.
I think if you philosophically think he should have just broken it all the way down, then I see that argument. But after they had the season they had a couple of years ago, would anybody have said that? When they lost to Vancouver in the first round, his very first full year on the job, was anybody saying, hey, they got to break this down, man. This isn't good enough. They need to break it all the way down. I don't think anybody was saying that. Now, in the last year or so, that's where I think he had an opportunity to go backwards. But I can see what they did. In the individual trades, I do think they inched them forward in the right direction, becoming younger. Like, for example, Scott Wedgwood for Eustace Onanen got them younger. Nick Hague for Colton Sissons. Nick Hague and a second-round pick for Colton Sissons and Jeremy Lauzon gets them younger. Justin Barron for Alex Carey got them younger, but Justin Barron has not done much. And so that one didn't work. But the attempt to systematically, slowly, steadily get younger, you can see the pattern there.
Ryan in Nashville says, I did not give him a D, but look how many contracts he gave out with no movement clauses, and that's where it goes to a D. Joey from Bellevue says,
okay, who's got the no movement clauses that he gave out?
Stamkos,
Marchessault,
Shea, and Saros. Because Yossi and Forsberg were signed by
Shea
David
has a
Boyle.
no movement clause?
Yes, he does. Or he has, let's see, actually.
Yeah,
he may have.
It looks like he does. No movement clause.
Okay.
NMC on the.
Yeah. It eventually, well, actually, He's got a no movement clause and a modified no trade clause. So in this case, he can be traded. He can give the Predators a 15-team no trade list. The no movement clause, I believe, protects him from being waived or sent to the minors without his consent. So theoretically, the Predators could trade Brady Shea. He does not have a full no movement clause. He has a modified no trade clause, which supersedes the no movement clause. But he did give Shea that contract. He gave Marchessault the contract, Stamkos the contract, and Saros the contract. Yossi and Forsberg were signed by David Poile. Joey from Bellevue says, I gave him a D. His first year, they squeaked into the playoffs, and they've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. When was the last time they missed the playoffs back-to-back years? Wasn't it when Barry Trotz was wrapping up his time here as coach before they hired Peter Laviolette?
Yes, his last 2 years as the coach. But that lacks the context of what I pointed out at the very beginning. What did he inherit? Did he inherit a team that was on the rise or on the fall? I would argue that he inherited a group that needed to refresh. They were in the fall. They were windows. That was a window that was closing. Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene, Ekholm, that group, Granlund, that group had sort of run its course, and they decided to move on. And that was really David Poile that started that program in motion and then handed it off to Barry Trotz. So I think in that context, if you're just going how many times did they make the playoffs, that lacks what he inherited.
And that's why I said I think some of it is probably more than some of it. I think a lot of it is the on-ice performance and the lack of, this team getting in the playoffs over the last, 2-3 years. They could have, regardless of how the trades went down, or if you thought that they signed this guy to a contract they shouldn't have, if they were in the last 3 seasons, that they had been a playoff team, it would have been looked at different. But that's on top of them not being a playoff team. So I think that's why, people are not looking at some of the moves that, some of these younger guys that they went out and get that ultimately needs to develop, and some are. But they're just looking at it from a wins-loss standpoint.
Let's go to Ryan on our phone line. Ryan, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
What's going on, guys? How are y'all doing today?
Good, thanks.
Doing good.
I definitely agree with you, Adam, that we need a full rebuild. My question to Willie is, Willie, do you think that we need to get younger and faster? We need more speed. So to address the offseason, Tyson Yost has got to go. I mean, we had a chance to trade Hall at the deadline, but we didn't. And then I would re-sign Barron. So, kind of assess those points. And then do you think we need to get faster and stronger for sure?
Thanks, Ryan.
I think faster, stronger, better is the goal. And that's why I go back to the young group that is inherited by McFarland. What does he think of that group? He's objective. He's coming in and looking at it anew. He wasn't there when those guys got picked. So I wonder what he thinks of those players, because that's part of the answer, I think, that Ryan is as how do you get faster? Well, hopefully some young legs, some young skill can help. Some of the guys that maybe got a test of it last year, it's essential if they're going to be competitive next year that those, or at least a large number of those players, get better and help more. Like, where does Matt Wood go from last year? Really nice rookie year. Where does he go? Does he go backwards, or does he take another step forward? So if you tell me the answer to that, I can tell you a lot of how it's going to unfold. But yeah, they've got to get faster. Jost, Halla, those guys are free agents. I don't know if either one of them will be back. Jost might be a nice 12th to 13th forward to bring back on a small contract. He's a useful guy. I don't think Eric Halla will be back, and I'm just guessing this. I don't think Justin Barron will be offered a contract. I'd be a little surprised just because they have a lot of other guys in the system there. You tell me, Adam. I
wouldn't do it.
So their choice is to give him a qualifying offer and keep him for 1 year, or just let him go. Don't tender him and just let him become a free agent.
Correct. And if I were Chris McFarland, I believe Chris McFarland was part of the Avalanche when they drafted Barron, because Barron was drafted by the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I think he would know a lot about Barron.
I would say I think you should pass. Quickly, a couple of texters. One texter says, Barry Trotz picked a lane, retirement. He was great as a bridge gap to keep everyone interested in the team as he gained more draft capital. Matt says, a serious organization would not have let someone with zero GM experience take that position. It was very clear that Trotz was in over his head. I'm so happy we have new blood. Any response to that before we...
Again, I think if he had sunk the ship in terms of trading a first-round pick, trading a top prospect for something that was a short-term fix, then I could see that. And there's no question. I think it was eye-opening for him to become a GM when he had never done it before, when his perspective was being a coach. I think that's a fair thing that challenged him for sure. And I think that's part of why he decided to take the direction he did and announce his retirement. He said this on the airwaves on our station more than once, how demanding it was, how much it was on his family, the different stress, the different type of stress and pressure of being a GM as opposed to being a coach. There's no question that was something that was difficult for him, for sure. But I still think, to be fair, I think a C is a very fair grade. A D or an F is being a little too harsh.
615-737-1025. Once again, we appreciate all of the participation in the Predators offseason survey. Maybe we'll revisit these questions as the offseason progresses. But coming up next to wrap up the show, I had a bit of a Nate Bargatze moment last night, and I want to share it with all of you coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Okay, let's talk Loan Pronto. Credit card interest rates now are very high, and you don't need your summer bogged down by looking at that bill each month and saying, what's going on with my monthly budget? It's eating me up. I'm only making the minimum payments. I'm not knocking out that credit card bill. How do I go from here? Well, with Loan Pronto's rapid equity loan, you can pay off your credit cards, your existing HELOC, those other loans that have high interest rates, or you can even get money from your home's equity to work on a home improvement project. There's lots of ways to use the equity in your home, and that's where Loan Pronto comes in with their rapid equity loan program. And you can do this all from your phone. Zero out of pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. So go to loanpronto.com and find out how much you can get, how much you can save. They've got clients that are saving $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, based on the net result of working with Loan Pronto and using the rapid equity loan. Once again, 615-499-5780 or visit loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
DMase, Vin Gnandonic, 102.5 The Game. A little Bruce Hornsby to end the program.
This one I actually did know that I knew he was from that area.
He's from Williamsburg.
Okay.
So we had,
and you know where I found that at actually? In the Allen Iverson documentary. I remember.
Why was he in the Allen Iverson documentary?
Because
Bruce Hornsby, that is.
He was a very good basketball player in that area. Hornsby was good. And they just mentioned, they were talking about the sports history of that area, the Tidewater,
Hampton Roads
area. And of course, Mike Vick is from there, but it was all about Iverson. But this is all sort of background info. And they just happened to mention Hornsby as a guy, an interesting person that was part of that backdrop as they led up to AI's presence. It's good stuff.
I spent New Year's Eve 1999 with my family at a Bruce Hornsby concert, bringing in the new millennium.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
That song gives me flashbacks to college because that was the financial aid hold song. And you would be on hold for like 45 minutes to an hour, and that's all you would hear.
Piano solo.
So, I mean, it was good for a good 10 minutes, and then you'd get sick of it.
Well, here's a fun story. So most people recognize that piano interlude, I guess you could say, from Tupac's Changes. Tupac sampled The Way It Is from Bruce Hornsby on his song Changes. And many, many years ago, when the Predators were in the playoffs in 2017, in the second round against the St. Louis Blues, on an off night, I went to a piano bar with a couple of people. And you know how piano bars work, right? You give the pianist a tip, you suggest a song, and they play it. So I told the pianist, I want you to play Changes. I want you to play the Bruce Hornsby piano part, and I want you to rap like Tupac. And I gave him like $10 to do it. And then he was like, this is the suggestion I got, but I'm not going to do it. And then he just sang The Way It Is. And I was really pissed off. I was like, I want my $10 back.
So if he had, like, did he tell you, hey,
No, he did not. He took the money and then said,
but he didn't say, hey, I can do that. Or did he, like, I would have appreciated it.
He said, like, sure thing or something like that.
I'd love to help you, but I just don't know that one or something.
Right.
Like,
and
he kind of led you to believe he could do it by taking the $10.
Yes,
right?
he did a good rendition of The Way It Is, but I wanted him to play the piano while rapping Changes by Tupac while playing the beat underneath it. And he didn't do it.
Specifically tell him that?
Yes. I said, I want you to play Changes by Tupac because I want you to play Bruce Hornsby's piano line, whatever you call it, sample, and rap.
I think this is a great case for Judge Wapner or Judge Judy.
So he took your $10.
Yes.
Did you say, well, where's the rap? Did you ask him where the rap was after he was finished?
I can't recall. I may have had one or two at the time. So I can't recall how I responded, but I do remember I was PO'd about it.
Why didn't you do the rap?
That's a good question.
If you wanted it so bad, you could have done it.
But you know what? I paid someone to do it, and I wanted to hear it. I wanted the show.
Gave my $10 back, man. You did not sing the verse, or the verses to the melody,
to the performer at the Howl at the Moon by Busch Stadium in St. Louis. I don't know if you're still working there 9 years later, but if you are, I'm very mad at you. Spike Lee, Game 4 of the NBA Finals tonight. He will be there. I also saw that Taylor Swift will be there, scouting out her wedding venue, I guess.
Has she ever done a show there?
I'm sure she's done countless shows at Madison Square. She's too big for Madison Square Garden now. She plays stadiums exclusively, I have to imagine. But I do want to get to something that happened to me last night. We went back 9 years. I want to talk about something that happened to me last night. So many of you around here, I'm sure, are fans of Nate Bargatze because he is a Nashville native. And he has a funny bit about double dashing. If you know Nate Bargatze and his comedy, he loves fast food. And he has a bit about feeling embarrassed about having the same DoorDash driver stop at multiple fast food restaurants. So he double dashes. He'll make two separate orders, and have 2 separate drivers bring the food to him so he doesn't feel embarrassed by it. The funny bit is one time he said the 2 drivers arrived at the same time, which made a very awkward encounter when 2 drivers arrived with 2 different fast food orders at the same time. But last night on my way home, my wife called and asked me if I could stop at a fast food restaurant to pick up something for Arlo to eat. And I said, sure. She also asked me to get her something too. I went to the fast food restaurant. I ordered the meal for Arlo. I forgot the meal for my wife.
Oops.
So I went home and I said, I'm sorry, I'll go back out and get it. So I gave Arlo his food. But here's the thing. I went to another fast food restaurant to get what my wife wanted because I was too embarrassed to go back to the original one. Even if it was just like, hey, I forgot this with my order from 10 minutes ago.
You could have made up a story.
I don't think they care.
I know
you
they
could've-
don't care.
you
I
could've
felt
said-
a little embarrassed
You
by
could
it.
have said, help a brother out. Here's what I did. I forgot to get my wife's food. They would have said, oh, let me help you out, sir.
No, I don't think it was
They would have
anything.
sympathized.
I don't think it was anything with them. I was just like, I don't want to be that guy who arrives at the same fast food drive-through twice within a 10-minute span.
And have everybody in the back snickering, going, what the heck is this guy doing?
But I
Sure.
do
Yes.
like, the whole Nate Bargatze skit with the 2. I like that because for this reason. Because if I order the food and then have him go pick up another meal, one is going to be cold. One is going to be extra cold. So I'm just going to make 2 separate orders, 2 separate, drivers. So they both come at right around the same time.
Well, I think the bit is he likes certain things from like McDonald's and certain things from Dairy Queen and certain things from Burger King. But he feels embarrassed having the same driver go to 3 fast food restaurants because he thinks the driver's going to judge him.
It wouldn't even be an embarrassment. It would be about my food being cold.
I don't think he's thinking about it that way.
That would be me.
So basically, you bought the staff at said fast food establishment their dinner for the night.
What
That's
do you
very
mean?
nice. Yeah, did you
No,
reorder the same meal?
No, I didn't. I didn't place the order for my wife. I only placed the order for Arlo. I forgot to place the order for my wife. Went home, dropped off his order, and then went to another fast food restaurant to get what my wife wanted.
Was it further than the actual one you went to originally?
Just a few blocks.
So it really wasn't
Now,
that
did
far.
you get? Can you describe the look you got when you walked into the house and you did not have the food?
Well,
for
at the
Mom?
time, the baby.
I wouldn't want to know.
Yeah.
At the time,
Because I've been there. I've seen the look.
the baby was
It's
going
not
nuts. She wasn't eating. She was
Yeah.
fussy.
Oh no.
I could tell that Bridget was very tired.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll go back out, honey. Don't worry. But I was like, I can't go back to that restaurant. I got to go somewhere else.
You thought too much about that, Adam.
I
You should
know.
just went
You overthought.
Yeah, sure.
But I
overthought
thought,
that
I was
one.
like, this is embarrassing. I can't show up to the same fast food restaurant twice in 10 minutes.
I
hey, you
thought
was just here, huh?
I thought you were gonna get skewered with the mom that's been with the kids. Like, forget it. I don't want anything. That it just make you just sit with it the rest of the night.
No.
You forgot mom's food.
You
Well,
should
you
have gone in with a ball cap,
Like-
taken off your glasses,
Exactly.
and been like, "Hey, could I get a number 2?"
Just ordered your
Change your foot.
At the drive-through, yeah.
Hey, can I get aren't you the same guy? No, that wasn't me. I see your hat, right? No, that wasn't me. Should have did that, man.
So,
That
no.
was my twin.
But I want to know if anyone can relate to that. I was just like, I can't go back. I mean, it
Nah.
was an honest mistake. I can't go back. I had to go to a different restaurant.
I do feel weird if I do forget something, and then I have to go back to the same grocery store. I do kind of feel weird about that. I don't know why. It's just like, you walk in and it's like, you're somebody thinking like, well, why is he back in here? What did he forget? And I never want anyone to think that. So I do kind of feel like, going back, but I go back. I don't go to a different Kroger or a different Publix or whatever shopping center I go to. Grocery store, excuse me.
Yes. I could relate to Nate Bargatze at that moment because when he tells the story about the 2 DoorDash drivers arriving at the same time and sort of being stuck in the driveway as they are both dropping off the food, I was like, Now I get it. I can understand why it's
Okay.
a little embarrassing.
If you guys had a ticket to go to the game tonight, front row, courtside, you ain't have to pay for them. Who would you want to sit next to?
Larry David.
Larry David? Yeah. 'cause
No
you thought about
question.
John McEnroe. That would be my guy.
it. Okay.
I
That
like
was
that
just
duo.
my childhood guy.
I like that duo of Manning and Jeter that was there last game. That was pretty cool.
You may get a lot of conversation out of Manning, but not out of Jeter.
I think it's the opposite.
You think?
Yeah. Manning's pretty quiet. Peyton is loud. Eli is kind of quiet.
You may be right about that one. Huh.
It's a good question.
I would take Spike because he's there all the time.
No Chalamet.
I feel like Spike.
Nah,
Anyone but
Spike,
them.
you would have to just be ready to be
because Spike
in it
would
from
be
the
in
very
it. That's what
beginning.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you gotta
Spike
be
would be
in it all the way. It wouldn't be casual at all. There'd be no conversation.
No.
It would all be about the next play, the last play, the refs, all of that.
He'd be in it, man.
You wouldn't be talking about do the right thing.
No, definitely not. You'd be.
You
in
would
it.
have no time.
No
for you.
side conversations. All about also.
Yes.
It's all about ball.
I'd sit next to Kylie Jenner if that was all right.
Of course you would.
Just clear it with Timmy first. That'll do it for us today. Game 4 of the NBA Finals tonight at 7:30 p.m. ABC. Spurs at Knicks. Can the Spurs tie up the series? Can the Knicks take a 3-1 stranglehold on the series? We will find out together in just a little bit. I believe we will be out at the ballpark tomorrow, First Horizon Park, with the Nashville Sounds. And bring your portable fans, boys, because it's going to be a scorcher. But we will talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music. Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will be back on these airways live from the ballpark here in Nashville, Tennessee at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. And as I always say, we're going to be talking and
You going to be listening.
peace.